The whole idea behind mind-body medicine is that you have physical symptoms, all different types of physical symptoms that are generated from unconscious emotions, primarily rage and pain, and that your mind is creating the physical symptoms as a distraction so that you never come close to these unconscious emotions, so that it never surfaces to the level of consciousness. So in all of his books, Dr. Sarno describes this unconscious childlike persona. Now, this persona has four, you could say, negative character traits. The first thing is that he's very, very narcissistic. The unconscious does not want to feel imposed upon or be imposed upon in any way. The unconscious doesn't want any responsibility, and the unconscious is very dependent, doesn't want to have independence, wants to be taken care of. And that's where 2 out of the 4 sources of rage comes from, because the way we live in our life consciously, the way we are, the way our conscious disposition is, and the day-to-day everyday life, the pressures of life, these 2 things causes conflict, inner conflict between who we are consciously and the unconscious childlike persona. So a classic case that Dr. Sarno mentions in his books about where there's major conflict between what we do consciously and what the unconscious child feels is, let's say, taking care of elderly parents, where you always have to be there for them. You have to be selfless. You have to sacrifice. There's a lot of responsibility that's involved with taking care of parents. Let's say you're bringing them, you want to transfer them into a nursing home. Anything that's involved with aging, and you have to be there for your parents, especially when you're one of many siblings and all of the responsibility falls on you. So again, that's going to cause a lot of inner unconscious conflict, anger, and pain. Why? Because again, the unconscious child doesn't want any responsibility, which you're clearly doing to take care of your parents. It doesn't want to feel imposed upon, which you're doing. It only wants to be dependent, and all you're doing is being independent and trying to be there, a strong person for your parents. And it's only narcissistic, only wants for itself, it's egocentric, and all you're doing is being selfless again for your parents. So this is a classic case where there is so much anger and pain that's being generated in the unconscious. Now again, we don't know how much it is, and we don't even feel it because it's in the unconscious, but that's what's happening. And this is really a good thing. There's nothing wrong with taking care of parents. This is something that you should be doing, but still, nevertheless, our unconscious reacts to this with a lot of anger. Now the second scenario is who we are as people. When you have someone who's a people pleaser, they're conscientious, they're ambitious, these are actually good traits. These are actually traits that are required to get further into your job, into your career, and work up the ladder. These are things that are actually looked up to, very much respected. However, again, this is in constant opposite of our unconscious child, because again, our unconscious child doesn't want to feel imposed upon. And every time that we're conscientious and we're ambitious and we're perfectionistic, that's a big one also, and we're people pleasing, we are doing things that's causing a lot of anger to the unconscious child persona that doesn't care about ambition. It doesn't want to feel imposed upon, and that's exactly what you're doing when you're trying to work up that ladder financially, and when you're trying to people please. You're always doing for others. You're not being narcissistic. You're being selfless. You're not being selfish. You're being very independent and helping out others, and this angers the heck out of the unconscious child, and it causes a lot of pain. It causes a lot of other emotions that are just killing it and just generating a pile of negative emotion. And again, this is the reason why you're going to have physical symptoms at some point, at some time in your life. It might be worse than others, but for people that are very prone to being people pleasing and people that have a lot of responsibility and strain in life, they will most likely develop some type of a symptom physically, because their unconscious mind wants to protect them from these unconscious emotions that's being generated just from everyday life. So to conclude, the 2 out of the 4 sources of rage that your unconscious will generate comes from the responsibilities of life, which can come from work, your career, your family, raising a family, the finances, the fact that we age, and it also comes from your predisposed character traits like ambition, conscientiousness, people-pleasing, perfectionism, which again, these are things that you really want. These are good traits to have in our world to actually make us successful. However, it causes an enormous amount of rage and pain in the unconscious, and in the next video, I'm going to go into depth why the mind feels to create so many different types of physical symptoms. So stay tuned.